Stormwater, Stormwater and Groundwater Committee of the Village of Martins Edition, meeting for its first time. Welcome, everybody. And let's get started. I wanted to start off, I have a few notes here about what to do. First, why did we set this up? Well, the reason we set this up is because a lot of people asked to set it up, that there were a number of issues arising in the village. And let me just go through a small handful of them. One is that the storm drains, either the storm drains or the roads or something, don't seem to be getting rid of all the water during heavy rainstorms. And we've had overflows over driveway aprons down into garages and houses and basements. It's not clear that this is any worse than it ever has been in the past, but it's been noted. Another thing is that we've had builders digging too deep into foundations, striking groundwater, creating a great deal of hazard to themselves and to their neighbors. There also seems to be just in general water issues, whether it's from people's own water seeping in through their basements because they haven't had sufficient impermeable stuff put on the side of their basement walls when it was built, or it's aged, or it's deteriorated, or there's more water, or what, we're not certain, but people have been complaining of that. So it was decided that there were a sufficient number of complaints that we wanted to set up a stormwater task force, stormwater and groundwater, two things here to look into it. So among the things we're going to want to look at is this any worse than it ever was? Is it, even if it's not worse, is it sufficiently bad that we ought to make recommendations to the council to do something about it? And that brings us to the kinds of information, the kinds of deliberations we'll want to have. I think we're going to need a questionnaire, a survey. So the people out there who have any kind of survey experience, get ready to volunteer to start pulling together a survey, a questionnaire of the residents. Another kind of information is going to be data. So you spreadsheet enthusiasts, people who want to go out to U.S. Geological Survey websites to find out what's there or anywhere else, feel free to volunteer later. We're going to have to set up meetings and discussions with a whole variety of people, particularly in Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And the reason I mention Prince George's County is that they do have a regulation in their building code that requires boring through the basement, lower than the basement, to find out where the water table is. And they require the basement to be at least 2.5 feet above the water table. So they're not going to get the kind of accidents that we've seen in Martins Addition. Let me just mention one, my neighbor across the street in building his house, and he did this himself. He said he dug his basement a foot too deep, and he said it cost him $100,000 in mitigation and remedial actions. It meant sump pumps, 3 of them in series, and then a generator to run their sump pumps in case the power goes out during a storm, which is when it's likely to go. You get a hurricane dumping a lot of water. It's seeping into the ground. The sump pumps go out. And this happened actually one of the few times in our own house. I was away on a trip. My wife was downstairs bailing out the sump with a coffee can, putting it into a bucket and dumping it down the drain. So neighbor said it cost him $100,000. Well, Prince George's County obviates this by requiring borings beforehand. Question is, what we would like to talk to them about is, why did they do it? What's been the effect? How has been the policing of that? And then equally for Montgomery County, why they don't do it, and what the effects may have been. So we're going to need somebody to do setting up of all kinds of interviews and discussions with people, including builders. I have a few builders of mine who are responsible builders, but who build to the max, and who know Martin's Additions, as well as some of our residents. Ed Novak, who was on the tree committee with me as a commercial builder, but knows the building profession pretty well and the issues that arise. We'll need somebody, and this is to be discussed, the secretary to take the minutes, but you'll have to discuss whether you want to actually have a traveling secretary or a varying secretary. Some of the committees do that. They will assign for each meeting somebody who takes the meetings, takes the minutes, and publishes them. So all of these tasks, plus probably more that you'll come up with, are going to be required. So I think you ought to think about yourselves, what you might want to do, where your strong points are, and what you would be comfortable signing up for doing. Okay, now that's any questions on that? Feel free to come up with questions. You have the mission statements. If you want it again, I'll send it out again to everybody. You also have guidelines for committee meetings, for committees that also had sent out, so familiarize yourself with that. And the Open Meetings Act. I think they're the main things. So any questions so far? Anyone have anything?
Maybe just when the time is right, I would love it if we could introduce ourselves.
Okay, that is the time. The time is right for that. Perfect. Unless we have any other questions. No? Okay, so I'll start with myself, Arthur Alexander. I've been on the council now, got 7 terms, so it'll be 14 years at the end of this. I've been chair, treasurer for a good part of the time, chair again. So volunteering has gotten into my blood, it seems, but I think we're going to hear talk about term limits pretty soon. Okay, who's next? Who wants to go next? Phil, since you raised it, who are you and why are you here?
Yeah, sure. My name's Phil Hurst. My wife Samantha and I live at 3407 Thornapple Street. So you all are certainly welcome. Anytime you see us outside, please stop and say hello. We've got a 5.5-year-old and a 14-month-old and a 7-year-old golden doodle named Mars, who is here sitting with me at the moment. And we moved to the village during the middle of the pandemic in September of 2020, and have been very happy residents ever since. We love it here. And I started, I guess, my village service on the community engagement committee, and have done that for a year, and am continuing to do that in addition to being here with you all. In terms of, I guess, why I'm here, we live in new construction, and you all may be familiar in particular with our builder, but we have struggled ourselves with water related issues. And so
Phil, tell us what kind.
Sure. So we've had basement flooding, and primarily, I guess, basement flooding, but also in hearing from my neighbors the issues that they struggle with. So, sort of given the fact that we have some very real data points, myself, me and my wife, I'm someone who's definitely been out there bailing out our window wells with a garbage can when the sump pump turns off. I know that very well, and having spent lots of money on backup systems and remediation, I feel that pain. Plus, like I said, hearing our neighbors and understanding what's happening with climate change, I just think there's real work to do here, that we can better help ourselves and our neighbors be prepared for what's coming.
Good, thank you. Jean, as I'm going from left to right on my screen, I see your face there. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. I'm embarrassed to tell you guys how long I've lived here. 1975. Okay, now I was just a mere child. I will tell you, I paid $75,000 for my house in Martin's Additions, okay? And it was a lot of money at that time, a lot of money. Anyway, so I was village manager twice. I was the first village manager starting in about 1980. I left the city of Washington, D.C. as a budget analyst under Marion, well, actually Walter Washington and Marion Barry.
Mhm.
Was village manager for Martin's Additions starting in 80. Left
From your home,
full-time.
you were working from the house, weren't you, at that time to
We
begin?
started the office of Martin's Additions office was in my house. And then during my first reign, I helped incorporate Martin's Additions, made us a municipality. So I know all the history. And then decided, I got to the point where I had my fourth child. What was I thinking? Except it's a great place to raise children. And so I took a break and went off to some other fun stuff. And then I came back in I think about 2006 and stayed another about 10 years. So Martin's Additions is in my heart. I've got lots of knowledge about it and its history, its background. I love history. I love infrastructure. And so I think I can bring a lot about that, a lot of knowledge about it.
Now, Gene, your house is kind of situated a little bit higher up. Have you had any water problems?
Yes, as a matter of fact, my house was built in 1905. I don't know if I said that. It was one of the original houses in Martin's Additions. And Shepherd Street was once upon a time Anderson Street. I have all that information about the streets used to be. Yes, we have water problems in the basement, so it doesn't have to be new or deep. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I have lots of friends at WSSC. I have lots of friends at the county and the county's Department of Environmental Protection, DOT, private organizations. I was a part of creating our building codes. So I'm looking forward to working with everybody. And I will say I have a tremendous respect for our history, who we are, where we came from, and the fact that we were originally a field, that we were farms, we were farmland. And I would bet that we began to build the houses here with no understanding whatsoever what our infrastructure was. And that's why there's all sorts of streams and there's very few storm drains because we don't know what was here. So that's I'm giving away my bias, which is let's figure out what we got, who we are, and what our land is. So I'll shut up now. Imagine that. Next,
Okay,
do I get to
thank
pick
you.
the next person?
Going left to right on my top of my screen, Mark, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Schaefer. Gene beat me out. I've only been a resident a short time, since 1979.
And how much did you pay for your house?
Well, Gene bought just before that one of those price rise bumps, and I bought just after, so I paid $150.
Okay.
But
it was a deal.
It was a deal. So I think of Martin's Additions as a family. Like all families, we fight and disagree, but I just can't tell you how happy I've been to live here, how much I enjoy it, and how amazing the people are. Almost everybody you meet. People want to know about you rather than tell you about them. And that's just different from a lot of the world. So I raised my kids here, and then they both showed bad judgment and moved to Southern California. So the grandkids are there, so I have to travel there once in a while. I've practiced law for 50 years. Yeah, it makes no sense. But I'm semi-retired. I'm going to shut it down next year, with the exception of one client. And in the last few years, service has become pretty important to me. I have stormwater in my basement, but mine was because my house was built in 1937 with cinder block, and the mortar becomes porous.
Right.
So I only had to spend like $10,000 or $15,000 to patch that up and then channel the whole inside and put into sump pumps. But now I hear I better get a generator. Okay.
Okay.
The bigger problem for me actually has been stormwater flowing from an uphill neighbor's residence. I have no issues with them, with people. They're lovely people and all that stuff. But they put in a patio, a cement patio. It was non-porous, and it's pretty good size. And while I had always had some flow down the hills and had managed it with my own French drain system, this was huge and started just flooding me out. And so I had to spend $6,000 to create a collection system to hook on to my old collection system to take the water to the street. Then a few years ago, I made a lot of money and I was able to buy a beach house up in New York, and I rented out in the summer to pay for it. And I now have a failure of the grading around my house and drains and stuff. So I'm now going to be installing flow wells and all that kind of stuff to move the water away from my house to a place where it'll evaporate, because that's what flow wells do. So enough of that. I've really loved working with Arthur and the village managers and the council and the Gene for decades, I guess it is now. It's always, my experience has been, it's always collegial. And we're lucky to live here and be on a committee that's serving this community. This will be my fourth committee. This is my fourth committee or task force. I was on the committee, I guess I led it with Gene, that incorporated Martin's Additions. We turned it into a city because we thought it would give us more control over our zoning and our contractors and the service providers. And that went, it was hard work, but it went remarkably smoothly, I thought. We had help from the village lawyer, who became a federal judge and was a great guy. We had a lot of help from the county, and it was a very positive experience. Then I was on the first zoning ordinance task force. We wrote that first zoning code, and we hired an expert to guide us as to what you should think about when you're doing zoning. And we put together a plan that would be that would maintain the character of the community. Trees, large backyards, lots of open space, and distance between houses so let air and light through, and a limitation to the size of a structure compared to its the lot size, and breaking up the wall planes so things didn't look so ungangly. We worked really hard. We put together a real plan, and as far as I'm concerned, it failed. So that's something you got to think about. Builders now clear the lots of all trees, and trees are like the biggest gobbler up of water. And so the way it works in New York is that you can't take the trees away from the setbacks. If they're in the setbacks, they stay there and gobble up the water. So maybe that'll be something we have to deal with. And then I worked on the public safety and health task force. And that was pretty complicated because there were simply no guidelines. There was nobody to look and see how you did this. I mean, people had talked about safety, but it was mostly traffic. So we wound up, because the council was starting to get into these safety issues, we wound up focusing on health and worked through a plan to fund Chevy Chase at Home support for older seniors who wanted it. The last thing I guess you should know is, because I'm a lawyer, I've been involved in stormwater management lawsuits. They're usually between neighbors, where the law in Maryland is that if you unreasonably increase the flow of water from your property to your neighbor's property, you're responsible for the harm. Of course, a judge decides what's unreasonable, right? So those were, yeah, I won them, fine, bragging. But I also learned in another dispute here in Martin's Additions regarding zoning on Thornapple, by the way, that I could be right on the law and wrong about what the community wanted, right? And so that's one of the things I think we're going to want to be very mindful of. Whatever we decide, we have to have incredibly strong support and proof for it. And then we have to sell it in the positive meaning of that term. So I've talked too long. My wife tells me that all the time. So I'm thrilled to work with you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think our wives, we must have the same wife.
We had that conversation once before.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Camille, why don't you unmute yourself and tell us about yourself?
All right. Well, hi, everyone. So I moved into Martin's Additions about 4 years ago. And it's me, and I have 3 boys. One's all grown up, though, and lives in DC. My younger 2 are teenagers and live at home. We have 2 dogs, and we love it here. And we came specifically wanting this exact community. And this was really the only place we were looking in. And I'd been looking for a while and on and off, and found the house and was excited to get to move in. And really, I'm just on the committee for a couple of reasons. One, I'm eager to just get involved with the community more and try to do some good. I care a lot about it. I care about my neighbors and the ones I know and the ones I haven't met. Also, like Jean was saying, I'm very interested in the history of the Additions, and have tried to learn as much as I could about my house through the Historical Society and things like that. And my house is up on a hill. I haven't had any problems with water. It's newer construction, though, also. But I've always been, since I moved in, very aware that my house is newer and worried about whether there was planning for the older homes or anything that was like built into the code so that they had to come up to a certain level. Because just knowing what went into the stormwater management for my house and looking around at the neighbors and not being sure if they had that same protection or not made me concerned. And I just want to be a part of the solution instead of the problem. So here I am.
Good. Well, thanks. Well, I'll answer one of your questions. The county came up with or strengthened its stormwater management requirements about 5 years ago, and required much more to be kept on the property. I think I can't remember what the definition was, but a certain like 100-year storm up to a large storm has to be able to be kept on the property by various means. Older houses are grandfathered in. We're not supposed to use that phrase anymore. Don't have to meet the new standards. So your house probably does, your neighbors probably don't, if they're older ones. And this can lead to some of the issues where water flows downhill, and you're not going to be affecting other people, but other people can be affecting other people.
Right.
But older houses are not required to come up to the current Montgomery County code. Okay, Joel, up to you.
Can I ask one question?
Oh yeah, go, please.
Also, I'm wondering who Phil's builder was.
Say that again.
I was wondering who Phil's builder was, since he's having troubles.
Oh, I don't know. Phil,
I don't recall their I don't recall their sort of DBA, because I think they sort of incorporate each project, right? So like there's an LLC associated with each building project. The name of the sort of primary person involved is Dejan Bujic, I think. I'm probably butchering his last name.
Right.
But I think I can go and look at some of the documentation to see what their primary LLC is.
Yes, I remember them. Okay, Joel.
Hello. It is lovely to be here. I'm so thrilled that this committee has come to life. I moved into the community almost 2 years ago, and I've become politically active much sooner than I would have hoped. I would have hoped to go slower in my political activation in the community, more by well, it seems strange to say this given, you know, things happening across the world right now, but more by necessity than anything else. You know, we have this lovely little community down at the end of Quincy Street. It's you know, there's many families here. We all spend time together. Our kids play on the street, and then last summer, the summer before last summer, 7 of our houses flooded, and then this developer came in and built a spec house next door and wreaked havoc on our little side of town. I will spare you the details. I also, you know, want to not talk too much about it on record. But if you drive if you drive down Quincy towards the bottom, you will see that there's a ton of water that pools in between 2 homes. One of them is mine. And, you know, we were stuck in limbo for a very long time, working, you know, together with everybody on this call, the VMA Council in Port Michael, trying to figure out whose jurisdiction this is and what, you know, some of the inadequacies of our code were and how other jurisdictions are handling these problems, and ended up talking with, you know, dozens and dozens of experts, trying to figure out how to resolve the situation and how to move forward, you know, against some pretty tough odds with a developer who just did not want to do simple fixes that would have remediated, you know, all this flooding that we're now having. So I'm very happy that we're here. I've spent an astronomical amount of time in my life thinking about these issues, way more. It is not a subject that I desire to specialize in. It's one that I've had to, you know, become an expert in, like many of you, it sounds like, as well. And you know, I'm thrilled by the expertise that I see around here in the call. You know, both on the legal side and on the management, you know, the governance and management side. So, you know, excited to kick things off.
Good. Thank you. Before we move further, I just want to remind you, and I'm going to send you material later, that there was a water committee, groundwater committee, or stormwater committee in 2010 that came out of the building code group, who decided at the time that stormwater was not something they wanted to deal with at that moment, and form another committee to take a look at it to see if there's an issue and what to do about it. Mike Zielinski was the chair of that. He was on the council at the time. He chaired that. And I have their report. They did a survey, and I will send you the survey, the results of the survey, the minutes of their meeting. And perhaps when you look at their description of their discussion with county officials, you will find that nothing has changed. The county don't know nothing about nothing in many of the cases. They don't know where the storm sewers are. They don't know what the capacity is. If anyone is going to build, you have to hire Miss Utility to come out with magnets and things to find out where some of these drains are. And it's a mess. But the WSSC, the storm sewers, have been taken over by the county now. So it's now a county function. And these are people that we will want to talk to. Now, one other thing I just want to mention, the village has commissioned a study on Taylor Street on the storm sewers there. And because we were getting periodic flooding, and the contractor said that they're over capacity. That they cannot take the normal amount of water we get in a very heavy storm. And so we've been trying to figure out what to do about it. Could we cooperate with the county to rebuild that sewer? Do they do it? We pay them for it. Do we do it and pay for it with their blessing? How do we go about doing that? That is an issue that has not been resolved. It's currently on the table. Yeah.
Arthur, is that issue coming to us, or is it gonna
If
stay?
you want to
in
deal
the-
with it, I think dealing with the capacity of the storm sewers is going to be something you're going to want to deal with.
So, and Gene did a survey, this weekend and found out that we don't have a lot of sewers.
And
There's none on Shepherd Street, there's none on Cummings.
Can I ask, is that we don't have a lot of sewers, or we don't? I guess I've always heard it referred to as there are county sewers and there are private sewers. Are you saying there's not a lot of either? Or have I been told like incorrect labeling?
Well, we're all gonna have to learn labeling.
Yeah.
But I was trying to prepare for this meeting and I realized it's gonna be a thing. But there are no curb cuts for sewers on Shepherd Street from Brookville, just around the corner on Brookville, to when we turn into county land. And there's no cuts for sewers on to collect water on Cummings, same run. And so the water flows down Cummings, flows down Brennan, and our water flows down Shepherd, and it all goes to the county land. And try walking that county land during a rain.
Okay, so these are issues I think that you are probably going to want to address. But I will send you out these materials after this meeting. So if I forget, there's the 2010 committee, all their stuff that I have. There's the Prince George's boring requirement, a spreadsheet that I put together just as a preliminary investigation of what might be out there. And the one source of water that I found there is for Rock Creek at Sherrill Drive, which is about 2 miles from here. And there is essentially a 10-minute flow meter that reports back to 1929. I did, and this is downloadable information. I downloaded it and looked at some of the data. And from that one data point, there is no evidence that the stormwater has been increasing or that the variance in maximums have been increasing. I thought that global warming and heavier storms and bigger rainstorms and so on would be visible in there, and it's not. In fact, it may be going the other direction. So these are the things I think that somebody on the committee is going to want to look at. So I will send that out again too. Okay, unless there are any further questions on, yeah, Camille.
Also, well, we're talking a lot about stormwater and groundwater and how it impacts the structures. But when I was listening to, I guess, Joel about the area that flooded for him, isn't it also a problem then becoming a mosquito breeding ground?
Yes, yes,
And
Right.
we
other
have
things?
multiple issues of that type. In the winter, it freezes.
Right.
And we have skating rinks at the bottom of Quincy. Quincy, where Joel happens to live, I think is the lowest spot in the village. And the storm drains have a problem. The sewer, the sanitary sewer has a problem there. And water on the street, there's a problem. So he has a collection of all three.
Arthur, I'm concerned about and I want us to look at the new development on Cummings, because from what I can tell, first of all, it's incredibly overbuilt. But what I can tell is they set up the water to go into flow wells at the back of the lot, which is about 15 feet below the hill behind them. And I know flow wells. They don't evaporate water, they send it out slowly into the soil. And I've heard that the builder there wants an easement to pump the water up and into somebody on Shepherd Street's property and down into Shepherd Street. And that person has said no. That's going to be a great place for pooling and ponding, because they don't have a plan for getting the water out of there. And then it becomes a lateral support problem because the water starts to dig under the soil. So, Camille, you're right. We got to look at that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
here, okay, then before moving on to that, I just want to say that we have to be sensitive to jurisdictions. Right now, Martin's Addition does not, the only kind of water that we regulate is pumping it out onto the street. The streets are ours, I want to say. They're not ours, that they belong to each of the residents, and the village holds it collectively for all the private residents. But that's the only restriction that we have. The only requirement is the control of what's pumped onto the street. The county deals with everything else, especially during construction and in getting your building permits. So issues of who is going to take responsibility for things has to be thought through in a very detailed way, which brings us to the next part of the meeting. You are going to select your officers. And once you do, I will stand back and put myself on mute and listen to what you have to do. So the officers are going to be a chair, a vice chair, who takes the role of the chair when the chair is absent, and then some decision about a secretary. The secretary typically takes the minutes. In some committees, this has been revolving. Different people will volunteer or will be assigned to do it for each meeting. So it's not one burden that one person does. So with that, I will step back and allow committee members to nominate somebody to be a chair, a vice chair, and to discuss what you want to do about having a secretary and take the minutes. So I see Phil Hurst has a raised hand.
Only to ask a question, which is,
go ahead.
For the chair and vice chair, sorry if you hear the dog in the background. Are those two people required to be present in order to do business, right? And just thinking through that particular question.
No, they're not required to do. What you need to do business to have a quorum. And in this committee, you need 3 people. That's all. There is the chair. There's a lot of work that goes into being chair of a committee. It's organizing. It's doing a lot of phone calls. It's probably going to involve writing a final report or a draft of a final report that will be going to the council for the rest of the committee to review. So being chair is not just coming in with the gavel and banging it and saying this meeting is coming to order. There's a good deal of work. Mark, I see your hand is up, and then Jean.
Well, I think I'd like to follow up on Phil's question about the vice chair. When we, in our last committee, which I chaired, I desperately asked that the vice chair take over some of the chair duties and share that load. And Amanda Saul was just perfectly gracious and did do that. And it made the job more manageable because it's a lot of work, you're right.
Right. And Jean?
Okay, I'm going to cut right to the chase, okay? I want to nominate Mark Schaefer with all his experience with so many different aspects of Martin's Additions and running his committees. I would like to nominate him to be chair of this committee.
Okay. Well, we have a beginning going. Anyone want to second?
Can we have a second on that, please?
I'll second him as long as he's willing to serve. I don't want to put him on the spot if he's not.
Mark, it's up to you.
Mark,
Are you willing?
come on.
This is a real challenge, and I like challenges, so I'll take a shot.
Okay,
And
we have a vote on that?
Hopefully you all carry me over the finish line.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
applause counts as an aye vote. Camille is up, and since Jean nominated, I presume you're voting for.
Absolutely.
Wait, can we ask questions? Can we ask questions? I want
Yeah,
I want to
no,
ask some
a
questions. So Mark,
question.
here's the question, which is that I think that there are committees, right, where it's important for people to be involved and to focus and to drive some progress. On this one, there are a lot of people in VMA that are depending on you because their houses are flooding.
Yeah.
It's a very, very serious issue for many of us. It's crazy to say this given what's happening in the world today, but it's kind of existential for us, right? We spend all of our time thinking about it. There's people who are in deep depression. I mean, I've met with families who are in deep depression in the village because of the flooding issues that they're having. Are you able to give it your all? Are you able to really throw your hat in the ring and lead us and do everything that it's going to take over this coming year to get us past the finish line of trying to address as much as we can the water problems that we're facing in the village?
Who's that question for?
That
That's
was
for
for
you.
you, Mark.
All right. There's no other way to do it, Joel. It's gonna take up half of my time. And fortunately, I'm retiring in January, so apart from when I'm visiting the Grands, yeah. But I want to caution you, and we can work this through. Our mandate is to make recommendations for the council to act. Arthur and I went through this last year about whether we could even represent ourselves to other county officials and all those as officials of Martin's Addition. We're not officials of Martin's Additions. We are members of this task force. So that frustrated a lot of people, and I totally get it. But we're sort of stuck with the structure that we're in. So the real question is, how broad can we approach this? Because there's at least, I can think of 20 issues we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because there's also different ways to do these things. They're getting the county to put up some money for something, although they really only care about is sediment in their sewage system. There's getting the village to do something. There's getting residents to do things. And I think maybe one of the most important things is going to be, there's two more important things. We have to get our lawyers to like step in when utilities and folks don't do their duty. All right. And the other thing is that we're going to have to look at our zoning ordinance and the permitting process. Arthur's right. The county has the big permit, but we have the baby permit, and we've used it often. I don't think we've been using it enough in the last several years, but a lot of what I think we're going to focus on is preventative stuff, self-help stuff, and squeezing what we can out of the government. I sort of see those three buckets. And Jean's a genius at squeezing things out of the government, so you might want to have her put her helmet on and get going.
Okay, so we had a vote on that. You accept, and I think everybody, Joel, raise their hand. Okay, and Joel is nodding yes. Good. We now
I'll say more, which is how fortunate we are to have somebody like Mark Schaefer in our community. We do not know each other. I saw your resume, but a former partner at one of America's top law firms has offered to spend a lot of his time over the coming year devoting himself to this cause. So we're lucky to have you, Mark. Thank you.
Good. Next meeting we will get together in person, so we
Yes.
can get to say or clap each other on the back or whatever we do. Okay, we now need a vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Jean Sperling for vice chair.
Aren't you?
Camille, I don't think that qualifies as an I vote. Jumping up and down. Jean, are you willing to
I
accept?
love her energy and her qualifications. And if he hadn't done it, I was going to do it. So I'm super excited.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I presume we will have I votes for Jean?
Well, don't I have to say yes before anybody
Yes,
votes?
you say yes.
Thank you very much.
She said yes.
Well, I
Okay,
did.
so we
By
have
my
a chair and
smile?
vice chair.
Okay. Well, I was going to say to you, my one caveat would be, I don't think this
Jean, you're breaking up.
She froze.
is
Joe,
gonna be just a year. Okay, wait, give me a break.
Okay, you're
got
back.
me now? Okay, I'm back. Got me?
Yeah, you're
okay.
on.
The only thing I will say is I think we should plan on more than a year. This is a huge issue that needs such research there's no other jurisdiction that nearby us, Chevy Chase, View, Somerset, and
Jane, you're breaking
of
up
Chevy
again.
Chase that have done. I'm sorry. Okay, well,
Okay,
my
there you
answer
go.
is yes.
You're back. Okay, good.
Okay.
I might want to respond to that, but I want everybody else to start responding. Otherwise, I'll talk too much.
Okay.
Gene, I agree with you that the whole project is going to take longer, probably. My committee took 18 months, but we could sequence the work and spot things that we can do quicker, including the issues that Joel is bringing up. If we agree, as a group agree, that's the priorities, and I suspect we're going to agree to that. And
Right.
so if we sequence the work, then maybe we can get a lot done in a year.
Yeah, Mark, I think it might be helpful if we, oh, sorry, and I think we're getting past the elections. You still need to elect a secretary, right? And then we can come back.
Right.
Okay, let's get to
Elect a
secretary.
we'll come back.
Do you want to do
Oh.
a traveling secretary or a permanent one? Anyone volunteer to be secretary who takes the minutes?
Can I say something different than that?
Yeah,
I would like us to, and we'll have to get Mike to help us to record every meeting,
this
even the
is being
administrative.
recorded. It
Even the
it will be
administrative
posted.
meetings. And then we'll Google Translate, convert all of the notes. So the secretary doesn't have to keep active notes and the secretary, and then somebody can edit them and then we can vote. And that will reduce that horrible job, which I failed at on the zoning committee.
I actually tried you can go to, this is going to be posted on YouTube. And YouTube, you can get a transcript from it. And I did it from one for a recent meeting, and it's terrible. It's just, it doesn't identify anybody. There's all the ums and ums and everything. It's the full dump of it. So I'm not sure how helpful that is.
Well, maybe we can look for a better system,
But
I got it.
okay,
Figure this out, because the secretary shouldn't be in pain during every meeting.
yeah. Okay, but we will need minute meetings after.
Yes.
One, before I turn this over to you, one further warning. Michael, our village manager, is not a servant of this committee. All the work you do, you have to do yourself. He will post the minutes. He will put out announcements of the meetings to come and give the Zoom addresses and so on. But he is not a secretary or a task. You can't task him with things. So everything you do, you got to do yourself. So
yes, but I always ask Michael first if I'm doing it right.
okay.
And he knows. He's invaluable. So secretary, we need somebody to volunteer for that job, please.
Unless you decide to move it around.
We can rotate it we can rotate it like bi-monthly or something like that.
Based on my experience on other committees, the rotational model works best and is fairest.
Okay.
So that would be my vote, but
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that? All right, we
Gene,
made
your
our
hand
first.
Can I think to have the same person be the secretary, establish a pattern, know how to take the minutes. I think it's generally a better way to do it. There's new techniques, as you mentioned, that it should make it easier. Could we start with picking one person, and when that person freaks out, then we ask for somebody else to step in? Could we try it like that? Also, I'd like to
how about setting a 3-month thing? And then we'll
That's
review
a
it.
good idea. You're secretary for 3 months.
Right. And then we'll review it.
Everybody think about that.
At least we'll have a structure at that point.
Yeah.
Then it'll be easier for people to take over.
Okay, that could work. Now, who's going to be for the first 3 months?
Oh, come on, Camille, step up. Come on, I'll help you.
I don't know. I've never done it before.
Wouldn't we all help her? Arthur, wouldn't you help her?
Sure.
Michael,
I have some
wouldn't
good
you
news
help
for
her?
you, Camille. Our minutes are not a verbatim
Yeah,
list
absolutely.
of everything we talked about. It's only the highlights.
Right.
All right, if somebody just gives me the instructions, I'll follow them. And I'm already freaking out. I think I can last 3 months, but I am already freaking out.
But you're freaking out among friends, so that's
Right.
okay.
Absolutely, we will help you. And are we gonna put a website page up so that we
Yeah.
have structure, we load this all right onto the website, piece of cake, right, Michael?
There's already
Yes.
a website and the agenda for this meeting is on
Oh,
there.
yes.
Right.
There we
Oh,
go,
I
so
have
it's
an-
already started.
So did we just elect Camille?
Yes, we did.
For 3 months.
3 months.
Come on,
Okay.
Camille, we're here to help you.
All
Okay,
right.
3
now-
months, a
Okay,
six
you
pack
have-
of beer, and my shoulder to cry on.
Right.
Okay,
And,
I
and
am
Gene's
about
help to get
bow-
it done.
I'm about to bow out. And it's going to be your job now to set up some kind of a set of tasks and program for the next meeting. What do you want to do? Where are you going to go? And this is thinking short term, but with the long term in mind. So thinking about the next meeting, what do you want to do between now and then? What are some of the tasks and missions that you see going on? And right now I am putting myself on mute. It's your
All right, I'm the chair, so I know what I want to do, but I don't want to say it. I want to hear what you guys want to do. So could
Okay,
we
I'm
share
happy to
some
pro-
information?
I'm
Share
happy to
some
propose some
information.
ideas, but also very
Great.
interested in listening to folks.
Mhm.
Sorry, we're talking generally now, right? Not specific?
I'm only talking about what we're gonna do between now and the next meeting, but you can get broader if you want.
Okay, I think it might help, Mark, to your earlier point, if we set up different tracks and move the tracks at the same time, and that we're not going, because otherwise it'll just take us too long, and I think people
Right.
want some reasonable, at least, ideas from us and analysis. So at least I think there's two sort of primary buckets, and maybe there's more, and maybe Michael has some ideas around this, but we have infrastructure issues, right? So that is like the physical infrastructure and what it's able to handle. And then there's regulation and jurisdictional issues. And those seem like two different buckets to me. They're
Agreed.
obviously related, but we could explore both at the same time.
Mhm.
Are there more that folks?
Yeah, I think the self-help issue and the neighbor relationship issue is the third bucket.
I like that. To your earlier comment, I was talking to one of the workers next door who's from El Salvador, and he was telling me that in El Salvador, you are literally not allowed to just dump your water on your neighbor's property. But
Right.
it's only in the US that it has to be a civil dispute for somebody to do something about it.
Oh, there's one other issue, which is when this is going to, pardon this pun, I can't help it, flow into zoning. We're going to get there, but maybe we can do these things first. Does anybody have any other buckets they think we need to? Yes.
I just have a question though. What are we gonna do throughout this period where we're trying to work on resolving these issues with the projects that are ongoing that might be having problems? What do we do?
See, that's the one I want Arthur to answer, even though he's on mute. It's a real problem.
But he
Yeah.
can hear you, so he may be pretending.
No,
not
I
to
just
talk.
unmuted myself. This committee is its job is not to get into current issues. It's looking forward. It's looking to the future. And I think one of the first questions is there a problem? What is the problem? What's the nature of the problem? So until you know that, and is the problem changing? Is it the same old problem, or are there new problems? I'll give you two possibilities, and I'm not sure that these are correct. One is that there's more groundwater problems because developers are digging deeper in order to get the volume of house that they want, given the constraints of the building code. So if you can't go up any higher, how do you get more volume in the house? You go deeper. That is a supposition. I don't know if that's true. Another issue is there more rain? Is there more water? Or is there stronger storms that overwhelm your yard's ability to absorb and the sewer's ability? Again, that's a question. I don't know if there's an answer. So is this a new problem or just an old problem that we're taking a look at right now? I think these issues should be answered.
Well, I
So,
think
but-
also the degree of percolation on property. And I want to hear what you all think about this because it's been hard for me, but hopefully some new ideas. This is all going to flow, like I said, into zoning, and that's going to be a whole other thing. All right. I'm not sure we can propose changes in the zoning ordinance. It may get shuffled off to a zoning committee. I don't know. The council may look at it directly. I don't know. We'll only know if we get to that point and we push the recommendations forward. I don't know if they will be timely for the current issues, but the council is going to decide those current issues. All we can do is identify what should happen in the perfect stormwater management world. Yeah,
Just to
what, Joe?
jump in quickly. So Arthur, I think that there definitely is a problem. I mean, I don't know if it's, well, no, I do know that it's worse. Montgomery County's put out stats. I have one stat. In 2010, there were 2 to 4 episodes of urban flooding in Montgomery County per year. And now it's 11 to 39 episodes of urban flooding per year. And then I've talked to many neighbors, I've gone to their houses, I've toured their backyards. There's flooding on almost every single street, and it's a lot of flooding. So I mean, I do think that this is a major problem. I think we part from there, but where I agree with your point, Arthur, is I think we need to start with identifying what is the problem. I mean, I think that is our biggest first take, right? And we could subdivide it into almost three tracks, different tracks, but 3 periods. Period 1 is sort of learning. We need a learning period. Period 2 is an analysis period, and then maybe period 3 is a recommendations period. And then we could do the different tracks, and they could go as fast as each track can manage it, right? So infrastructure, regulations, / jurisdiction, and then neighbors. But on the first track, right, which is the learning track, I think the main thing is we should seek out expert support from the beginning. I don't think that we should go at this alone. We have some great experts on the line who are, we have great legal experts, and we have, very strong, we have government experts, municipal government experts, but we need some we need some water experts.
Yeah, we're not engineers. We're not water engineers. You're right.
I think it would
Somerset did that, Joel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Gene, I think Gene has some information on that.
Well, a lot of the Somerset, town of Chevy Chase, and Chevy Chase View have done that. But I am a member of the University of Maryland T2 Center, Technology Transfer Center. And they have said that they would do a storm water class for our group. I'm a member of their Rhodes Scholar, ROAD. Yes, not RHODE. Arthur knows it well. Anyway, they said that I retook the drainage class to sort of refresh my memory. They said they would be happy to do a stormwater class for us. And we could do it at Chevy. We could figure out where to do it, but they said they would be delighted to do something. It would get us all kind of on the same page, knowledge about what stormwater is, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, if you're happy for me to pursue it, I already got them in the works. They were excited to hear that we were forming our group, and they said they would get back to me. So that might be a great place to start. This is the University of Maryland's T2 Center. Like I say, Arthur knows about it. And we would at least all start with a good, same basic information. Anybody interested?
Yeah.
I'm pursuing it. Okay, good.
All right, so that's a go, Gene, go do it.
Got it.
Gene and I have been digging, and it looks like Joel has been digging for the other stormwater management plans in the area. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
All right, Section 3 had one. I was surprised by that. The Village had one. Chevy Chase has one. The other Chevy Chase. Somerset has one. Chevy Chase View has one. Gene and I will get all of those out to you in 24 hours. And they are it'll give you a basis for deciding how you think about things, right? What's nice about this committee compared to my safety committee is people have been there and done this. That doesn't mean we're gonna be happy with what they did. That doesn't mean we're not gonna go in another direction. But at least we'll see how it's done and the way they document their decisions and they bring recommendations, the way they bring in engineers and experts and stuff to support it. Because if we're gonna ask the council to, first off, we're gonna ask the council to fund an expert, we're gonna have to show them why we should have that. Second of all, once we get the expert, we're gonna have to have the expert and us show the council what they got and why it's critically important that we act on it. So
Yeah,
it's a
I mean,
process.
I agree with that, but I also don't know. I don't think we should go at it alone, even from the beginning, right? So for example, like, I don't think we should do a survey of the neighbors, right? I think we need more of like a census together with an engineering firm where we actually figure out which houses are having problems. And have an engineering firm guide us through, okay, here are the questions that you need to ask, right? Here's what we're trying to understand about each property, that sort of thing. So I don't know that we should delay too much in putting together an RFP for a firm that can help us, that we bring to the council, because we'd have to ask them for the money. I think we want somebody who really understands this in and out from the very beginning, helping us guide us, even as we pull, all the plans from the neighboring communities and we pull, all the information that's available in geological surveys and whatever else we can get our hands on.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with you. But Arthur, aren't we still going to have to do the RFP thing, even if we want to go get an engineer now?
Yeah, you're gonna have to come to the council for a recommendation and back up that recommendation why you want to do that.
But an RFP is only required if it's over $10,000. So I don't know if, if that would be required at that point.
So maybe we should do some shopping, Joel.
Yeah, and we could also break it up, because we could break up a proposal into several different parts. So that it's less than, each part is less than 10.
You know what?
It sounds like the first part would be the survey.
I want to know what
you're
I'm
talking
shopping
about the audit.
for.
What?
I want to know what I'm shopping for. How could I know what kind of engineer I want to bring in if I don't know anything about who's responsible for this? Whose problem is it? Where's the underground streams? I want some time to do some research myself before I get an engineer to come in, because we can do it ourselves. We can at least do the beginning research and then go from that and say, this is what we found out. And then move from there.
Yeah,
So I hold off.
And you want to know what the problems are, what are the issues?
Yeah,
And this
exactly.
is where
Exactly. I don't need an engineer to tell me. I want to go find out what's there first.
Well, I think we could start having conversations with engineering firms and letting them tell us what questions we should be asking, what information we should be gathering, and what kind of, what service they could provide in helping us assess the situation.
Hey, Gene,
Yeah.
we're tough. Why can't we do both at the same time?
I
That
think
we dig the facts out. Joel or whoever wants to help Joel talks to engineering firms and sort of gets the big picture. The rest of us look at all these other plans and some of the other stuff that you found and some of the things I found, and we just read it and get our head around this thing. So even when we have the teaching plan, a program that you're going to set up, we know what the heck they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not hard work. I mean, that's a couple hours of reading.
Yeah.
And some yellow highlighter. So
I do think
that's my suggestion to the group, that we do all three. We do a little bit of this research to figure out the facts for Martin's Addition. Gene, can you lead that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And grab one of these folks to help you?
Yep.
And then Joel, you want to go look for engineers and get a sense of I think we want to do this in sequences too. Right now, we want to find what it would cost us to help them get us to put together a proper audit of the questions we need to ask of the residents.
That's right. So I think the question is, we're trying to address what is the problem? How do we figure out what is the problem?
Right.
What would it cost to figure out what is the problem?
All right. And then there'll be a survey of complaints from neighbors as part of this somewhere. What else can we do now besides those three things? chase down the facts, chase down the engineers, what they tell us we should know, or what we should think about, or we should ask, or what we should talk to the council about, and all that stuff, and what it's going to cost in sequences, and then educate ourselves by reading all the things that other people have done, which, by the way, were not necessarily effective, some of them.
Right, right.
Because it reads nice doesn't mean it worked. Just like our zoning policy that I was on that committee, we did a great job, but we didn't know what we didn't know. And it fell apart in enforcement later.
Yes.
Right. And then it had to be changed. But they're still clearing trees on lots like they don't matter. And that's a real problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get to all of it. Is everybody satisfied with that way of going forward? I don't want to just like lean on you.
Hey, Mark, can I
Yeah.
draft Phil into the talking to engineering firms side of the effort?
I'm sorry, draft what? Say it again.
Can I draft Phil into the talking to engineering firms side of the effort?
Look at his face. There you go.
Thumbs up,
There you go.
baby.
Yes.
All right. Gene, looks like you get Camille
Okay.
for the history research.
You
Right,
got it,
Camille?
right?
The documents are fascinating. All right. And Gene and I will get all the documents out to everybody so that you can start seeing how other people try to do this. I've suggested we meet in 2 weeks. Is that fast? Yes, that's fast. But given the concerns that Joel is raising about whether there's something that we can help the council with, and that's how I think about this, help the council with, or help Michael with now that we know or learn or understand or whatever like that, and they can benefit from that and maybe addressing something, that's great.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. We make suggestions.
Also, Mark, let me see what the University of Maryland MT2 Center can do for us.
Oh, all right.
It's an hour class, you know, I think they can do it all by Zoom. And these are the experts. So
Yeah. Will they
that-
talk about stormwater management too, or is it just roads?
no, it's stormwater. No, it's not. It's specifically their class is stormwater management.
Okay, great, great. All right, so I have one more suggestion that's going to make us fantastic, okay? Niles, Michael's predecessor, found this app for scheduling meetings where you didn't require 37 emails back and forth. It's one chart, 1 week, mark out your no dates and your yes dates, and you're done. So Michael, if you're listening,
Doodle.
You know,
I
Mark, you don't
asked
need
Doodle,
that. You need a
that's it.
spreadsheet. Just put it into a spreadsheet and you look across and that's it. It
Doodle
doesn't-
and hot tip, which is Zoom now transcribes all the meetings. I don't know how good they are, but it does.
Oh, good. Would you like share that with me and with Michael too, Joel, so we can look at it? Arthur, we're not doing spreadsheets. We're like 21st century.
It's
Michael knows the app.
It's you don't
It's a
need
no work app.
no counting on your fingers still works.
Counting up to 5.
I like a calculator better. Okay.
So Michael, can we use the doodle?
You're more than welcome to use the doodle. I will rely on you all to schedule your own meetings and just let me know when you want to schedule them for, and then I will set up the Zoom and get the agenda posted so that we're compliant with the Open Meetings Act and everything. So
Alright.
just let me know how to help.
So
And it's
where
okay
do
if your meetings are at the same time as other committees, because we have multiple Zoom accounts now and we can run, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
all right, where do I find doodle? I guess on the internet, right?
Doodles on Google. Hey, Mark, is it worth asking Katie and Andrew what their, as well, since they're on here, what their expectations are from us and the speed at which they expect us to move?
Or how much we scared them tonight?
Yeah.
Katie, do you have anything to say? Unmute. I think you are unmuted. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to thank everyone for their time and your energy and your expertise you're going to bring to this. I can't wait to see the findings. We definitely have issues in the Village of Martin's Addition with flooding. And anything I can do to help with documentation, especially on Taylor Street. I have some some great video of rainstorms at their finest. Even though we have sewers on our street, they're at capacity. I know this for a fact. I've been down in them to get many a rogue ball that have gone out of my yard. So I've even been in the sewers, and they're in bad shape. So anything you all can do for guidance and help is very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Kay.
and now,
Andrew,
Mark, we
did
want to
you-
open up at the end or any time to any comments from residents.
oh, yeah.
So are there
Oops.
comments from any residents sitting in on this?
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Andy Lean over at 3414 Shepherd Street. Delighted to hear Mark and Jean and others have stepped up. I think this is an issue, or this is a committee that is long in the making. I think, it's certainly not a new problem. We've, over the years, have been witness to, sort of increasing kind of catastrophic events, and it'll be good to really get into the reasons for this, and more particularly the very reasonable mitigation that we can do going forward at this point. Because I think again, as time goes on, as construction builds, it's identified here on the phone. Some of the issues that have come up with construction. There's a certain amount that we can do in terms of the standards. There's a certain amount we can do in sort of engineering our way out of the problem. But there's a lot we can do, I think, in just preserving some of the character, really, of the neighborhood that has that function to mitigate against some of these issues, namely, open space and trees, which I think Mark had mentioned earlier. So we'd be keen to hear approaches that involved, or solutions that involve that characteristic being preserved and enhanced, both from an aesthetic point of view and from a very, very practical and cost-effective mitigation point of view.
Interesting. Good.
That's great, Andy. I think we'll wind up talking about rain gardens. I think we'll wind up whether, and for a while there was county money for them. I think I saw.
There is.
Yeah,
They
but
were
Gene,
doing
I went
that.
on their website today and they said this website's no longer active. So we got to
Well,
find
you
that
know what?
money again.
Believe it or not, October 15th was the deadline
Huh.
for the most recent package of money. So there's
Yeah.
always possibilities for the future. Okay, we're not
We'll
there
get
yet.
some more money.
Yeah,
We'll get some more money.
Yep.
All right. So does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about?
Yeah, Joel, could
Okay.
you send, if you're still there, that reference you had to the number of storm events, if you could send that reference to us?
Yeah, that'd be great, Joel.
I'll send it over.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
So,
Th-
one thing else. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, just one more item to add to the to-do list. This may have already been on Gene's punch list, but to the extent that there are federal, state, any sort of grants or dollars available out there to do this work, like some quick Googling suggests that there are both federal and state funding programs for stormwater and sort of green infrastructure. And so to the extent that we want to catalog what those are and whether we might be eligible and what the deadlines are, might be a good idea to try and do that right off the bat. We can also ask that question of civil engineering firms who might be knowledgeable about what might be available. But to the extent that we can get help from a dollars perspective, I think we ought to at least figure out if that's a possibility.
My hope is that the University of Maryland's T2 Center
minutes.
would be a great source of that information. Okay, who's got the money?
All right.
That's
All
their
right.
job. Okay, all right.
All right. I think that, Phil, I'd like if you could just send your search page over to Gene. We'll throw that in the government group. And then, because that sounds like a great idea. And let's move on it. Maybe that'll even help us with some of the Joel problems about pools of water and stuff like that. Anything else, people?
So
All right.
we'll be looking for engineering firms to talk with, so folks have recommendations that they've heard from
Yeah.
other jurisdictions.
All right. So, Mike, again, Michael, don't we get a committee email address?
Not necessarily.
Can we have one?
they're
We had
the-
one for safety.
Yeah, now we're trying to limit it to the chartered committees like the Ethics and Elections Committee. So,
All right, because I want a clearinghouse for us getting
Michael, can-
communications from the residents. Gene already got one today
Yeah.
to her
can we set up
personal email.
a single email account for the committee?
What about stormwater test TF at google.com? I mean, just make a Google email, right?
Well, this becomes part of the public record.
Exactly. We need the public record, Gene.
Well,
so-
why can't that become part of the public
Well,
record?
it could, but Michael,
Well,
can we
I
start-
can set, we're on Microsoft, not Google now, so I can set up a Microsoft account if I'm so
Microsoft.
directed
All right.
for this committee.
Set us up a committee email. Okay.
It's a small
Please.
process, so.
6 pack
how
of
about-
beer, man.
Water at Martin's Editions.
Well, I do think it's very important, and I do think that we need to be judicious of the potential for future litigation on this issue, given that there are several highly contentious projects in the village right now, and
Right.
anything that we look at. Let's just say that I would much rather have these records separate from my personal records or any other records.
Okay,
I agree
water at
completely
Martin's
with Joel.
Editions.
All right, and then I would like everybody who, whenever you email, we'll figure out who's going to monitor this thing for comments by the community. Whenever you email each other about what is the business of the committee as opposed to administration, which is, can we meet on Tuesday or, whatever, or can you do this? I don't have time to do it. You need to, you'll have to CC that email address when you send it. So that folds into that record.
Mark,
'Cause
and
we're not- yeah.
just to be clear there, if Joel and I are emailing about civil engineering firms, because we have not created a quorum, right? We do not have to then copy in the email address, right? Or are you suggesting that we should do that even for like emailing, coordinating about talking to civil engineering firms?
Joel is thinking cautiously like a lawyer. It can't hurt to copy it into that email, right? It's just a CC. But do you think that maybe we don't need to do that? What do you think, Arthur and Michael?
Michael, for administrative things like setting up meetings and so on, legally you do not have to do that.
All right.
Like, can we get together on Tuesday?
How about the line being, if you're talking about engineers and finding engineers, and that's one thing. If you're collecting information from engineers or you're picking one or to recommend one, that may be the other side of the line. Does that sound right, Michael? Arthur?
There's administrative versus like some sort of policy discussion.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be
Yeah.
having policy discussions, even with your private emails. You shouldn't be having policy discussions amongst a quorum
Agreed.
of the
Agreed.
committee.
But where's that line for like the kind of question that Phil just asked?
Yeah, I think if you're doing regular work via emails or reaching out to people, and it would make sense to copy. And Joel's right, for the public information records, having it all in one place makes it a lot easier, and means that we won't need to go get your individual emails if there's ever a request or something. So.
All right, I think Phil, I was trying to get it for you, but I lost. Okay, anything else before Phil and I talk about our doodle dogs?
So if I am setting up an email, I do have a question about, does everyone have access to that email? Is someone monitoring it? That's quite an administrative task.
All the members of the committee should have access to it. Arthur should have access to it. I think we'll rotate who monitors it.
Okay.
I'll take this month because nobody will care. Well, at the next meeting in 2 weeks, I'll monitor it till the next committee meeting, and then we'll figure out some kind of a rotating system.
It might take me a minute to set it up too, so.
Okay, that's just fine. All right, everybody, I'm really happy to get to know you and work with you.
Likewise.
Great.
Very exciting.
And we'll disagree on things, and that's fine, and we'll work it out, and we'll get exhausted and emotionally tired sometimes, and that's fine. We'll work it out. We'll make it fun.
All
And it's
right.
gonna be fascinating. All right. Bye, everybody. Adjourned.
Good. Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.